Welcome to the show, everyone. My special guest in studio today, Mr. Travis Manson. I'm your host, Brooks Robinson, and this is Cortland Hooked, the podcast. So part 3 of Travis Manson episodes, not actually part 3, but this is your third time being here. Mm-hmm. You actually were the first ever guest on Cortland Hook, the podcast, for our first ever episode. I think that was like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago.
It was a while.
I remember thinking back as to how we were going to get this thing kicked off, if it was going to go good, if I was going to suck, and I felt like you would have been a good guest, considering that you do your live show, every Monday night?
Every Monday.
On social media, YouTube?
Mm-hmm. Right? On YouTube, SmallmouthCrush is the YouTube page. And then we do videos, of course, fishing videos and stuff throughout the year, but then every Monday we do a live, and we talk a lot of fishing talk, and we also...
There's a lot of bullshit on there, too.
We throw in some other things. So there's a lot of followers that are, viewers that listen in, that tune in every...
Regulars
that, they're there. We have normally 200 plus live viewers every Monday. And then, of course, people that couldn't watch the episode, a couple thousand views after that. So it's a cool little deal. My co-host, we call him Epic Eric. He's got one of the largest tackle collections, probably
Massive.
Personal tackle collections.
Old school stuff
around.
Too.
Old stuff, new stuff, everything. And so he's a co-host. So we dive into a lot of that, a lot of bass fishing talk, and just a little bit of everything that we're up to.
So you do that every Monday, 7 p.m. it starts, or 8?
8 Eastern. Yeah.
And then, so that's... 3 times a month, 4 times a month, and then you do a VIP.
Yeah, we have a special Smallmouth Crush exclusive. Yeah, right now it's on a platform, but we're going to be switching. So you want to kind of tune in to the live show to find out about that. Obviously, if you put any time on the live streams, and I love being able to interact with the viewers in the comment section. So there's a group of loyal people, and I'm sure someone that is brand new that has never seen it would find some interest and
100%
become involved in it. So we'll be able to.
What is the VIP thing?
That's a special once a month live that we do for exclusive members. We go in a little more in depth, tackle talk, secrets, maybe some things we want to share.
Sure.
With the general audience for that. So
it's a paying subscription, and you're going to give them a ton of more info than you would get.
Correct.
Off the general. So you got some fuzz here, bro. It's driving.
Fuzz.
It's driving me nuts. It's on your. There you got it. I couldn't continue without that.
No.
So the first episode we did, it was phenomenal. It was a great kickoff to the show, and it's been going great ever since. And my point is you actually in the last 2 episodes have set the bar extremely high for yourself as far as being a great guest on the show. And in the first episode, man, there was a lot of good stuff, and even the second, we discussed getting booted from a bass tournament because you were fishing off a 12-foot ladder you purchased from Home Depot for sight fishing. After that, you decided to catch a muskie that you took a photo of. That came back to bite you in the ass as it was out of season. Then you soaked a salmon ticket from a imaginary line that you weren't supposed to cross. All of these you have owned up to. Some of them have been dropped because you weren't in the wrong, which I commend you for.
Yes.
You snuck into a trade show in the middle of the night during a snowstorm and caught a bass on your YouTube, which they later found a dead bass in the tank the next morning. Most likely not your fault, but all of these things did happen.
So and then, you're going straight at me right away.
And then the last episode, you told us a story about how you used to sell cattle bones or cattle parts for chicken feed, and you had brokered what you thought was a fantastic deal, which inevitably led to your firing from that position, which I actually thought was one of the best stories I have ever heard. I remember I asked you, what did you do before professional bass fishing?
Sure.
and that's what you kicked off the show with. So the bar is set very high. I don't know if you're going to be able to top that.
No.
And if you do, I think you're going to become a truly regular guest on this show from how entertaining some of these
We can
things are.
try. That description of me sounds like I'm pretty shady, but, I do fish a lot. And so I'm out there every day, and I'm going to come in contact with the law. And sometimes I don't know all the regulations to that body of water. So that comes back to bite me from time to time.
Well, I will say that you are an honest person. You are not a cheater. Some things just happen, right?
Yes. The ladder incident was a big misunderstanding as far as the rules.
Agree.
It wasn't during the tournament. It was during
Pre-fish.
practice.
Yep.
And there was one day of practice, which was Friday, where they act as if it's the actual tournament.
Sure.
So you can't be above the gunnel of your boat.
Correct.
I wanted to be 12 feet.
Even though you're still 6'5", you wanted
Up.
Yeah. So we were like 18
And
feet.
so-
You're pretty hard to miss if you drove
Yes.
by that spot.
And so obviously I broke the rules during the practice, so I wasn't able to fish that tournament.
Owned up to it.
Yep. Muskie thing, that was a big misunderstanding.
Owned up to it.
Yep. The ladder, I went to court and fought that and won.
Yep.
Or not, the fish ladder.
As you
That's
should have.
There's two ladder
Yes,
stories.
there's a lot of ladder shit.
And what was the other one?
The fish tank at...
Oh, yes, the fish tank. So I did not break in. That was all pre-planned by
the doors were open.
Well, yes. It was, everyone was in on that except for the owner of the fish tank.
Right.
But the show manager was also on board.
Sure.
Who basically opened the doors and let me in at night.
Sure.
To do this. And if you guys aren't aware of what that setup is like at sports shows, oftentimes there's a big tank up there. You do demonstrations, show
Yep.
your baits, but they don't want you hooking the fish.
Right.
And so we thought it'd be fun to act as if we snuck in, snatch a bass real quick,
Yeah, put it back.
and call it a day. But turns out it was kind of a bigger deal than...
Well, I think your problem with that one you ran into is that you had posted it on YouTube. I
Yes.
think that night or the next morning. There was a big snowstorm that blew in that night with essentially just kind of like put the whole show to stop. So everyone was kind of probably sitting around on their phones and was able to view that. Where had they not had canceled the show that day, they would have been busy in their booths and life would have carried on.
Maybe.
However, you did own up to that. You
Yes.
apologized. That was on one of your live shows. Someone was like, Travis, when are you going to address what happened this weekend?
Yes.
And he kept hammering you with comments. I'm like, here we go. And you did, and it was great. And
Yeah,
then-
it was not, it was an innocent little, I don't know what you want to call it, sketch
sure.
that turned out to be completely innocent, but some people got a little upset.
Yeah, it's all right.
That's all.
That's all right. Well, my point was not to. I just wanted to cover some of the things that
Sure.
we went over.
We covered a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to go after you right out of the gate there, but my point is that you are an entertaining guest. You do have a lot of stories that are funny to look back on now. Maybe not at the time, although you do seem to just brush those things off your shoulder as they come along, which I cannot do. I don't know. It's just tough. So, but the cattle beef part for chicken food was a very interesting story. I did not know that you used to do that in the past.
Yeah, that was before I got heavy into bass tournaments, and
Would you
it was
say
just
that-
a regular corporate job?
Would you say brokering that deal and getting fired from that position led you to becoming a professional angler in some way,
Oh,
shape, or
absolutely. That next summer, I fished the Opens and was able to qualify for the Elite Series and kind of gain some momentum in the fishing industry that way. So it all works out.
Unbelievable. All right. Well, I just wanted to cover the past couple episodes with you. I think the first year we did an episode in September, so it was kind of past peak season, although you fish right through November until the lakes get super cold. So I wouldn't say it's past peak season, but past peak season for most. Pretty much after Labor Day, a lot of people, go back to work, get busy. Summer's kind of over. So last year we did the episode, I think in late May, early June. So you had already done a little bit of fishing because the Canadian side is open up on the St. Lawrence. So for those of you that don't know, Travis guides and is just a daily angler on Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence area. So upstate North Country, New York, smallmouth capital of the world, the #1 smallmouth fishery in the world. I don't know if that's true, but I think it is. It's considered by a lot to be that.
I think all the Great Lakes are right up there.
They are.
Yeah.
And I think we covered that on, last episode, some of the other places that you felt were possibly better than the area you currently live in and fish every day. Some places that are kind of untouched that you know
Sure.
they're good, but guys just aren't telling people because it's not a populated area. So,
Right. Or it's just a long commitment
Yeah.
from a driving
Yeah.
standpoint
Like
to get to some of these
Some of
places.
these places might be you need to come in from the Canadian side.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Where those guys just, it's not populated. These guys don't have a YouTube channel and they're not going to blow up their spots. The St. Lawrence, on the other hand, Lake Ontario, I mean, it's a very popular area. It's a phenomenal fishery. There's multiple tournaments there a year, from the Elite Series, the MLF, just daily tournaments, regional tournaments. But that fishery is just absolutely incredible. It just continues to give. Even if that fishery were to have somewhat of a setback, or maybe the population, I don't think it would ever skip a beat or you would ever notice.
I've been fishing it so many years now that I don't really see any changes as far as the fish population goes. The way
Their behavior, maybe.
their behavior's slightly different, and that changes every year based on really the weather.
When
and the
did you start
conditions.
fishing there? 20 years ago? 15 years ago?
2012 was
Okay.
probably my first time.
So you have almost 13, 14, 15 years into it. The weather being the biggest factor is behavior changes, or has like some of the situation with gobies or whatever?
Yeah, I'm going to say weather, but it's also food, right?
Food.
So that has a lot to do with it. And it's not significant. It's just things have changed slightly.
Sure.
The weights are definitely getting bigger in tournaments. Used to, on a bad day, if you had 22, 23 pounds, you have a shot at possibly even winning that tournament. Now, I think last year, every event, I'm going to say you need over 28.
I was going to say 29. Yep.
You need that.
Yep.
Used to, even 25 used to be like, okay, we got a shot.
Sure.
Now it's like, you might take fourth or fifth.
Do you think that the fishery and those fish have just gotten bigger over the years, or do you think technology and angler ability has gotten better?
It's definitely technology and angler ability, because most of the time now, I feel like the guys because the tournament anglers, there's not as many as there used to be. It drops off 10, 15. You can't be that guy that goes out there, maybe even a day or two. Let's say you go up there and you fish 2 times a year and you're going to fish a tournament. It's going to be really hard to compete with that limited amount of time up there.
Mm-hmm.
So the guys that are fishing it are really dialed in too. There's guides just like me that fish it. There's just hardcore anglers that call that their home body of water. And then there's just good anglers from outside the region that might travel 2, 3, 4 hours to come up, but they have enough history to
Sure.
be able to put something together. Now with electronics and forward-facing sonar, that helps you be more efficient as far as the areas that you're fishing. You can move and hit way more spots than we used to be able to. And so it's definitely, I don't think, I only fished a handful of tournaments. I mean, I don't think I had a win last year at all. But I had 25, 26 pounds. I think I had 27 in the last event, but it wasn't enough. So, put it this way, there's like 10 guys that are always going to be up there.
Yep.
And
you're one of them.
Any one of
Yeah.
us could do well.
Yeah.
But they also don't have as many open type of tournaments like they used to either. There's only a handful of events that
Right.
are up there. I mean, I might be fishing 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 or 6 in
Opens.
some of our smaller
Yep.
tournaments.
Some of them are your own, right? You still do
We used to do that. I don't think we're going to do that this year.
It's too much.
Yeah, it's not. There's a lot that goes into it, and time
sure.
is just off this year.
When was that? Typically July?
Yeah. If I did it, I'd like to have a series of them, maybe 3.
Sure.
I'm not saying we're not going to do it this year, but it's already
It's a lot of organization that goes into it.
a little bit. We don't have the gear. We were able to use the ABA, which is American Bass Anglers Association, I think it's called. We were able to schedule our event the day after theirs, and they let us use the trailer,
Piggyback off
the
some
wing and
stuff,
stuff.
yep.
So that was nice. We don't have access to that now, because I think they changed the guy who's running it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just didn't work out. So we'd have to invest in all the things to make that tournament happen, which
Gotcha.
can get a little costly.
So we're going to head into April here, which in the northern U.S., we're coming off a real winter. I mean, it was real this year. I would say it was normal for the most part, maybe above average in some cases for snowfall, and maybe not as cold as some of the worst winters, but it was pretty brutal. And that goes for, everywhere in the Northeast, the Midwest, smallmouth country I'm talking about. So I thought one thing, because the timing is different this year, considering, it's almost April now, into April, there's a lot of anglers that are preparing for the season, right? Something that we haven't been able to talk about. Now, I will say in the southern U.S., I mean, you got the Classic going on, Red Crest going on. There's Elite Series, MLF Series tournaments going on. Those guys have been bass fishing for a month or so down there or more, where we're still looking at snow on top of the boat right now and essentially preparing for that. So I just figured we'd touch base on some of the preparations that you do going into the season, although I know it's a constant thing. It's a 365 day a year type ordeal as far as preparing for the season. But my goal is to basically try to give you some topics or some subject matters on preparation that maybe avid listeners or our consumers might not think about, and they're like, oh, yeah, that is a good idea. I'm going to go do that now, right? So before we really get into the meat of the start of the season, which is typically, I mean, a lot of lakes are frozen, all right? Not the big lake, but a lot of smallmouth lakes are still froze, or they're just ice cold. There's snow on boat launches. The boat launches aren't open. So as far as preparation for the season, let's start with the boat, right? You run a Camus boat, you have for a while.
Yeah.
What are some of the things, like, you obviously, I'm assuming you winterize that starting maybe in December or so. You put it in your garage. You probably, do you flush all that stuff? Do you do any of that?
No, it's real simple. I mean, I just make sure that all the water's out at the last trip, run the motor just for a little bit, and put it away. It actually normally goes back to my dealer. Normally I get a new boat every year.
Sure.
This year I got the boat in July due to a insurance incident with my other boat.
Yep.
And so I had to, I got that first week in July, and, rigging and all that is a lot. And there's not a whole lot of new technology out this year. So
As far as the boat goes?
yeah, I'm going to run that boat one more year. But there was some small things I wanted to get fixed, so I sent it to my dealer, Thayer's Marine in Connecticut, to just make sure everything's good, and they'll do the oil change and stuff like that. I think I'm at the 200-hour mark oil change. So
On
I
that
put
motor?
200 since July on it. So that's simple. Just making sure that I clean the boat really thorough, and of course I'll have to do another thorough clean probably at the end or at the beginning of the year. So that's real simple. I think everything's gonna, hopefully, fingers crossed, everything's gonna work. Electronics will all be dialed in. It was cold, so things can freeze up and
Expand. Yep.
and you never know what you're gonna expect. But I think I'll be okay.
So you typically, your boat goes to the dealer. I guess you're probably not the best guy to ask in this sense, just because you have an opportunity and you roll over your boats every year, right? Or every other year,
Yeah,
every
typically,
year.
yep.
And they're getting winterized and dealt with at a dealer, and you get it back. Like, what are some of those things once you get that boat back? It's not like you're like, all right, ready to go. Like, you're going to check over those things. They're going to do an oil change, right, for you.
Yeah, we'll make sure the batteries are charged, and hopefully all the graphs work. We'll put them back on, and all the little electronics and stuff work. It should.
Did you ever, because last episode there were some things that you couldn't discuss because of the boat mishap.
Sure.
Are those things resolved, or can we still not discuss those?
Yeah, they're pretty much resolved. I'm just waiting on the trailer to get back to me.
Oh, the trailer is still an issue, because the boat was on the trailer when that happened.
Yes.
Essentially, a melting pot of a boat happened inside.
Yeah, we had a little fire in there, so
some wires, right?
yep, some wires touched.
Wasn't
the
an
ship.
actual fire, but wires. When you
Just
were,
it got real hot.
you were
and just
charging the batteries in the boat
destroyed the hull,
and a lot of gear.
and some gear. Correct. So, that was a pretty long deal with the insurance company.
I think our last episode that had just happened.
Sure, probably.
I think you were back and forth to the dealer. Eric was up fishing with you. The Canadian side was still open. That's open till what, May 15th?
May 10th, I
right?
believe,
So it must have been like right around mid-May last year when we had the episode. So what do you do in terms of maybe storage and tackle prep? Like you have like a tackle shop in your garage, as do I for my, personal stuff, as does Eric. But like, are there things that do you organize stuff? Do you get in new baits? Do you weed out things that didn't work last year?
Yeah.
Like, how does that?
Everything's pretty much organized from the start. I like to keep things pretty clean and organized. So everything's labeled, everything's in bags, boxes, things like that. The gear that I use for guiding is very simple. So I don't carry a whole lot of stuff, but I carry what works. And so I just monitor inventory on that level. Like I know how many, really for the beginning of the year, I kind of know how many baits or what type of baits I'm going to go through the most. So I'll buy, I think I bought a couple hundred bags of a particular plastic that I know we're going to use all year long. So I make sure I have most of that before the start of the season. That way I don't have to deal with it while I'm out there. But we go low on a few things.
What about like hooks and jigs and stuff?
Yep.
Anything that was used prior to the year, you just clip off. You start brand new. Are there hooks that you?
So I'm constantly rigging rods though. Like even that's a nightly thing.
Right.
Once we start.
So it's pretty much fresh when you put it away.
Yeah.
In
the
December,
only thing I'll do in December, there'll be some. So let's just take rods and reels. So I will clean the rods. Just make them look a little, nicer. They do get beat up a little bit, boat rash and stuff like that. But as long as it's working and functioning, it's good to go. Make sure we got fresh line or enough line. Obviously I use Cortland braid on all of my spinning rods, and the only time I really have to switch that out is for some reason if it gets low. I've probably ran some of those lines 2-3 years now.
Sure.
And it's fine. So as long as the spool's full, I'm good.
You're good to go. Do you ever reverse those onto another reel?
Yeah, you can do that.
I mean, you don't need to, but you could.
Yeah,
essentially,
for sure.
right? I mean, if you're, finesse fishing or not making bomb casts, there's probably a portion of that line on the bottom of that reel that hasn't seen daylight.
Yeah, that's a good way to save some money on that. But like I said, most of the time it's an accident where, someone that's newer to fishing, maybe, especially some spinning rods that we use a lot. Like I'll definitely have to change out some line.
Sure.
Just because of snags, breakage, things like that, tangles. So those are on the primary ones that I use for guiding. The personal stuff I use, I normally can get away with it.
And then what do you do as far as because you guide, you're a captain on the lake. When you're not fishing tournaments, when you're not doing your show, like you are what I consider a full-time bass fishing guide, as much as you can be in upstate New York, right?
Yes.
Like our shit freezes over for 4 months. What do you do for client prep? Do you just confirm your trips with guys? Are you still open? And I'll kind of recap that at the end of the show on ways that people can book a trip with you.
Sure.
But are those things, do you have regulars just set in stone? They know their dates, or like when does how about this? When does your season kick off for guiding?
April 15th will be my first trip this year.
Is that earlier than usual?
Right around there.
Right around
But
there.
we have a late winter, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, it will.
I'm hoping. I'm not worried yet, but we got to watch.
And that is something. Will you travel to the Canadian side? And that, so for those of you that aren't familiar with our area, what I described as probably the number one smallmouth fishery in the world, and it really is, and I'm not just joking about it, but there are two specific counties that touch the body of water that you fish, correct? Jefferson and Oswego?
Right, St. Lawrence and Jefferson.
St. Lawrence and Jefferson. Those are closed to targeting bass from
November 30th through June 15th.
June 15th, right. So is Oswego County open?
That's open year round.
That's open year round.
So most of Lake Ontario on the U.S. side, if you look at it geographically,
sure, the southern edge,
that's open year round, which is how it should be.
Correct.
Unfortunately, the DEC here in New York, they're stubborn. I don't know why things haven't been changed. We've been to some meetings about this.
I've seen those meetings, and you've made some really good points.
Yeah, some good points, but they just want to keep that season closed.
Sure.
Until the third week in June, when this year there's going to be
fish on beds
thousands
everywhere.
of beds after June 15th. So that rule doesn't do anything. It just hurts anglers that want to go out and experience the system,
And I think one of your points in those meetings, because I forget when I don't know if you were talking about it on one of your shows or if you actually had a video from it. I think you were just discussing it one night on your live show, and you had asked everyone, because there's a lot of moving parts to that issue, and I don't want to sidetrack from our discussion, but it is important to bring up. There are some captains out there that do catch and keep. They're keeping bass. There are just recreational guys. There's guys that are guiding that are catch and release guys. And one of the points you brought up, you said, if we're protecting these fish from what we consider spawning season, which is kind of goofy in the sense that the water's going to be ice cold this year. When the bass season opens, there's going to be a ton of fish on beds. But why do we shut it down in December?
Yeah, right.
There's no smallmouth spawning in December.
I should be able to take my boat out December 2nd.
100%.
And catch them.
And their reasoning?
There is
none. It's a very old school approach. I mean, kind of similar to, some of the trout fishing. They opened up trout fishing in upstate New York from October 1st through April 1st as a catch and release only. There are exceptions to that, lake run fish in certain areas that they don't want you to target, which is cool. So they have kind of conformed to, a more realistic approach on some fisheries. The smallmouth fishery in those specific two northern counties, they have not. They have yet to come up with a reason as to why it is the way it is. So my point is those trips that you have coming up, those will either take place in Oswego County, which you don't really fish that much because you've told me that, or on the Canadian side of Lake Ontario in St. Lawrence.
I think I ran 3 trips down by Oswego this past year.
Near the harbor?
And I love it. It's good fishing. And it will come and play this early season if we can't get up here. But once the Canadian season, once we can get out there out of the ramp, you can catch them day one as soon as you can put a boat in the water.
How far of is a run to the Canadian side typically from your closest boat ramp on the U.S. side?
A minute.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For the river, St. Lawrence?
Yep.
You just put the hammer down, you're there.
Yeah, it's right across the river.
Gotcha.
It's all Canada.
No, I didn't know because some of the put-ins that I'm not familiar with the area. So some of those put-ins that we did, I felt like we were close to Canada. I could see the windmills, but I'm assuming there's a bunch that are much closer than what we're fishing Mud Bay that day or some of those.
We were 5 minutes from the border there.
Okay.
Yep.
And you have no issues as far as being like a USGS captain doing a guided trip. Like, is it reciprocal that you can do trips there? Like, how does that work with the Canadian side?
Sure. We have no idea. So if I end up in jail again, we'll have a good story.
But it's common that other guys do it. Like it's and all the tournaments that happen, right? Those guys fish the Canadian side too, correct?
Yep.
No issues, nothing. No. I'm assuming, knowing you, that you will get pinched for this.
Probably
and
at some point.
Scotty and I will put some funds together, do a GoFundMe on Cortland Line and bail you out. Yep. Although I will say that after, not to get political, Canadians don't really like us right now.
You don't think so?
No,
Why is that?
I don't know. But anyways, good luck with that.
Okay.
So some preparation. Braid side, you mentioned, like, obviously we know you because you've been a long-term supporter of Cortland Master Braid, right? So you basically mentioned that you're not really switching out the line all that much unless you get really beat up tangles, issues like that. What do you think is the longest time that you've had one spool of braid on a reel where you look at it and the next year you're like, this thing's fine?
Probably 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah.
Like on a 5 or 8 or 10 pound braid, something like that?
Sure.
And is that typical for?
Yes, but also keep in mind, I probably have over 60 spinning rods.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And each one has a purpose.
Yep.
And sometimes that technique is not something we're using that often. So you may only use that rod a handful of times in a year.
Do you have dedicated rods, like when you do a lot of guided trips where you're like, I could dip into this rod that's brand new and fresh for this technique, or I can redo this rod tonight and get it back out there? Like, do you have some dedicated rods and reels that are for that style technique where you're like, I'm just going to keep this going, I'm going to re-rig it, I'm going to keep it fresh, or I'm going to put this in my garage and grab the fresh one that's going to be the exact same thing, have I redone that?
Yeah, so not really. It's all going to be at the end of the trip, I'll respool everything and just get it done. All the rods and stuff are ready to go back home if I need to, but I'll carry a bunch in the deck of the boat.
Mm-hmm.
So here's how I kind of have it broken down, because I don't do a whole lot of fishing when I'm guiding. It's more pointing and showing people what to do, and I kind of just sit back. There is occasions where I am able to fish, whether it be just one person or maybe they encourage me to fish. When I do that, it'll never be a time where we're competing for that same fish either. I might just randomly cast, and I learn a lot doing that, but I make sure they got first dibs on the areas I think they should be casting to. And so if I do get a chance to fish, I'm going to have 3 or 4 rods ready to go for myself. And then I'm going to have backups down below, which could be reaction baits. Maybe we get on a jerkbait bite that day, a spinner bait, whatever, Carolina rig. But then I'll have 4 to 5 rods per angler with the techniques I know for sure we'll be using. And that's going to be a football head jig, a Ned rig, drop shot, maybe a small swim bait, hair jig, stuff like that. So they have, and it's all the same equipment. It's all high-end stuff. They're going to use the same stuff that I use. And so I just kind of keep those ready to go at all times. It does get, you have to stay on top of it.
Yeah. So what are the questions, and I'm glad you kind of explained those 4 techniques are probably the most common that you guide for, correct? You just grab some braid to restock for the year. And typically, and I've seen in your past orders, because you send me your orders and we work on stuff together, it's 5-pound master braid, it's 8-pound master braid, it's 10-pound master braid, occasionally 15, although you didn't grab any, you probably had some left over from last year. Explain where a 5, an 8, a 10, and a 15 come into play for you.
So I keep it real simple. 5 pounds is going to be on any medium light rod, and that's going to be your Ned rigs, your drop shots, things like that. 8 is going to be on my medium-sized rod. So that's where I'm going to be maybe dragging a tube with it, or throwing a football head, which we do a lot, 1/4 ounce 3/8, something like that. 10 is going to be, if I'm going to be dragging a football head, I'll put 10 as the main line in some situations, and then also use 15 a little bit there.
For that same situation?
Yes. Now, you'll notice I didn't get a lot of 50, 40, or 65. Correct. I got plenty of that, and those are still, I mean, I do chase largemouth around as well, which would be on a frog rod, punching rod, flipping stick, stuff like that. But we just don't do a whole lot guiding. And so those, I believe I took a look at them already. There's not a whole lot. That 65-pound braid on a frog rod, that'll be good for years for me. It's not a technique that you implement. Right, not a lot. Unless you maybe go fishing another lake. I mean, typically for clients that are coming to you, they want to catch quantity of smallmouth and quality of smallmouth. Sure. They're not showing up there to go fish a lily pad with Travis Manson. Well, we'll get some of those guys too. It's fun when they want to do that, or they don't care. It's probably a nice switch up for you, right? Sure, it is. And then on my free time, I like to chase largemouth as well. And then there is occasionally, depending on the time of year, where you'll actually target both species, and they'll be mixed together. So you need to be well versed. I mean, there's weather conditions where you're not going to be able to do certain things that you want to do. Although in your specific area where you fish, there's so many points and islands that there's ways to tuck around. Yeah, you can always get out of the wind. Have you ever targeted largemouth and possibly bumped into something and learned something about smallmouth that you didn't know? Where you're like, I'm going to focus on these largemouth, and then you stumble across this area where you're like, no shit, I never would have, you know what I mean? There had to have been a scenario or two. Where, yes, definitely. Especially on the river, a lot of the small islands on the up current side will have some grass growing, and there is some big largemouth that hang in there, but there's also some big smallmouth that will get up and hang into that stuff too. So that's for sure something that happens. There's been some largemouth areas where I was fishing for largemouth and noticed that the smallmouth, especially in the spring, like to use that same area too. So, yeah, you definitely learned something. Interesting. Would you consider yourself a finesse angler, smallmouth finesse angler? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know you're well versed in anything. That's pretty much. That's your forte.
That's like what you do. That's what you know.
Yeah.
And guys book with you to perfect that, learn that, and fish that style.
I mean, honestly, I could if you told me I had one bait to use with one rod set up, one line set up for the whole season, I think I'd be okay.
All right. Explain some of your setups for, let's say, like leader situations for those. So like your drop shot.
Sure. So
setup.
that we burn through a lot of leader material. I like to use braid on all my spinning rods. I don't think there's an application where I use straight fluorocarbon at all. So with that, you have your 5 or 8 generally, and then you're going to pair that with a leader of some sort of fluorocarbon leader, and you're going to want
What size typically on the 5 and 8? 6 and 8 fluoro?
mostly 8, but there is some times when I'll dip down to 6.
Do you chew up? You said you go through a lot of leader material, and I
Yeah.
can tell you do because of what we just put together.
Sure.
Is that because of where you're fishing close to the bottom and the zebra mussels on the lake where it just gets shredded?
A combination of everything. It's definitely snags, okay, and getting shredded. That's why you saw a pretty hefty order of that 12-pound and 14-pound. So we drag jigs a lot too.
I did that.
half-ounce
I did
jigs.
that with you. That's one of the things that we did when we
Okay.
fished together.
And with dragging a jig, you're going to lose jigs. I lose 500 plus jigs a year,
No shit.
probably more.
Is it more or less if you're not on the bottom doing that, you're not getting
Yeah,
bit?
you're not going to get bit. And so, and a lot of it is, okay, put it this way. Guiding, you never know who you're going to get.
Yep.
And I try to give good instructions, but sometimes
Sure.
it's very hard for people to just get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're bumping bottom and you get a snag, your reflex is going to be to pull back and try to get it out. Where I just let that rod fold over, and 90% of the time that jig's just going to pop out. And that's also where
back
you get
itself out, essentially.
That's where you get your bites too. I don't touch. I don't mind a snag. I just hold it, and that rod's going to bend. Once drag goes, then you know, okay, you got to
you're-
do
you're
something
buried.
here.
Yep.
But most of the time, it'll pop out. What happens is the guys will feel that snag, or they might think it's a bite.
Sure.
They think it's a bite more often than not,
As they should.
and
Well,
they'll
they're-
set.
Yep.
And then it's stuck,
Buried in there.
buried in there.
Buried in a clump of zebra mussels.
Zebra mussels, rock clumps, just everything that's down there. It's a pretty irregular bottom a lot of places. There's
is.
a lot of nasty stuff. So I'm always putting fresh leader material. I tie leaders, I don't even know, thousands of times a year, I guess.
So your drop shot rig, how does that look? I mean, we know the leader material size, but
Yeah,
typically
8 to
like
10 foot.
8 to 10
probably of
foot.
leader.
and you have your weight, the bottom.
Yep.
What are you typically running for a bait above that?
A variety of different plastics. I mean, it could range from a small swim bait to a goby imitator to just a straight tail worm.
Scott actually, because I asked Scott and Chris yesterday when I was writing the show, and I'm like, what do you got for Travis? Because we're all bass fishermen, but it's more of just like a leisure type anglers. Like we like to bass fish. You know what I mean? We suck at it in the grand scheme of things, but we're interested in learning when you come here. And Scott asked the question, like, as a replace of a weight for a drop shot rig, have you ever run two baits? Basically the same amount of weight that you would running in that drop shot rig, but some type of bait pattern that, you know, like a heavy goby pattern.
Sure.
Is there a scenario where you would do that? Can you do that?
Yeah, you can.
Is it needed? Have you ever felt?
I've done it. So you got to think about it. If you're going to throw, let's say you put a jig as your sinker, and then you got a drop shot.
Yep.
You know, it's a different hook set. A jig bite and a drop shot bite is a total different hook set. So how do you know which bait that fish is biting on?
I guess you just got to hammer both of them regardless.
You know, yeah. But if you hammer on a drop shot,
You break.
It's not the best way to do it.
It's more of just a reel down, come tight.
Reel up,
Yep.
lift and reel, and
Yep.
keep it tight. Where a jig, you're going to give it a little hook set.
A little mustard.
So yeah, it'll work. I don't mess with it too much. I think it's a great idea to maybe experiment with.
Thought it was a great question, Scott.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's just if I see a fish out there and we'll throw a drop shot or a jig, I mean, it's going to bite most
Yep.
of the time.
Yeah.
That's how smallmouth.
There's
are.
no need for that. I mean,
Yeah.
like, you know, obviously we're big trout anglers here. Like we run two flies a lot. And there's multiple times where you can get dialed in on a certain pattern that day from running two flies, you know, but your fishery is just a little different where essentially it's not necessary. You could do it, but it's not necessary.
It'd be interesting to try it. The only problem is I don't even like, if I'm throwing a jig, I like to have 10-pound leader.
So you're essentially mixing two types of braid leader patterns together where it's just not going to jive, and that you would rather be completely dialed for one or for the other.
Yeah, basically.
I gotcha. How has, and this has been somewhat controversial over the last couple of years, and discussion the topic of forward-facing sonar, okay? And technology has evolved in a lot of sports and a lot of activities. You know, I'm a big golfer. There's a ton of things going on in that, like the use of rangefinders on the PGA Tour, okay? Even like bow hunting, I'm big into bow hunting, like running cell cameras, right? For years, like there were no cell cameras when I grew up. Now it's like guys run 30 cell cameras. You basically know what acorn this deer is going to eat off at 4:36 in the afternoon on a Tuesday in the right wind, right? Sure. Like at what point do we get to where it's just like, there's no skill involved anymore in doing this because the technology has just exceeded, whatever, wildlife or the sport. And those are just two examples because that's what I do. I live a pretty simple life. I'm just trying to correlate what I'm about to discuss from forward-facing sonar with you. So, and not that I have any issues with it. I know it's a big topic in some of the tournaments that I think it's gone away in MLF this year, if I remember correctly. Certain periods, right? I didn't even know that you had forward-facing sonar when we first fished together. I just thought you had 3 big giant effing TV screens on the bow of your boat until you're like, they're right here. I'm like, where? You're like, look at the screen. And I was like, oh, that's what you've been looking at this whole time. So that was also because you stuck me in the back of the boat and I didn't get a TV screen back there for myself. Right. So when did forward-facing sonars first come about, if you remember? I have no idea. This is an honest question.
I don't.
Was it 10 years ago?
No. I used it. I was one of the first up here to have it, the original. And I remember I fished a FLW, they call it the Costa Series out of Lake Erie. And it was supposed to be a 3-day event, and they canceled 2 days to wind. And so it was only your day one.
That was it.
Was it. And I can't remember. I think I was in definitely the top 10. And I was really upset that they canceled because I thought I had a shot at winning.
Were there points involved to move on to something else?
Sure, there was points in that.
Because I know you did some tournament shit back in the day.
There was definitely points in that. I'm going to say 2017 maybe that event was. That was I had it on my boat that year, but I actually used the 2D more because I still wasn't familiar with that. Then the following year, we switched over to 1, and I've been running 1 transducer for a couple of years. And now this year it's a little more complicated with the setup.
That technology continues to evolve, I assume, and gets better.
You know, you mentioned soon there'll be no skill involved. I
don't want to say that.
Well, there's a lot of people that will say that.
But my point is, and there's some truth to that a little bit. But at what point do people rely on forward-facing sonar so much that they don't, I suppose, work hard as an angler and learn more things without it, right? There's got to be a scenario in forward-facing sonar where it's just not jiving. Like maybe there's a bunch of just floating debris and weed mats in there where it's just you're picking up everything. I'm making something up. It could be no clue, right? Or there's a scenario where having never progressed as an angler without it, having relied on it your whole career using it, and I mean career, I mean just being a general angler, and then getting in a scenario where you're like, this is not working, what the hell do I do now, right? We got to get to a point where anglers rely on it too much and they don't expand their knowledge. Like, I know for a fact that I could take that shit off your boat right now and you could go out and do just as good as you would. But now, could you speed up the process by having it? 100%.
Sure.
But you've progressed as an angler for
me,
decades.
It's being more consistent. I fish because I like to set the hook. I mean, period. Yeah. Like, I just like to set the hook.
I agree.
Okay.
It is fun on smallmouth.
So I'm not out there sightseeing, enjoying the nature.
Right.
I'm out there every day. It's beautiful. I get that.
It is.
But, you know, people say, oh, you're just looking at the graph all day. You can't appreciate the day on the water. I don't know. I'm out there to set the hook. So if I can set the hook on more fish with this technology, I'm in.
That's
if I can
you.
catch more fish,
That's
I'm
you.
in.
Yeah.
That's my style. If you
Yeah.
don't like it, I understand. There's definitely people that are
Sure.
against it and for it. I love it. I would not fish without it.
Has it changed the way, I mean, like really changed the way that you both fish and guide? Like once you were guiding before forward-facing sonar came out, correct? Probably not as much as you do now. Once that technology came out, and after a couple years it evolved and it got really good, did you feel like that first couple years when that technology got good that you were like, this is going to really help speed things up for my guiding career?
Yeah, it does. We always use electronics for smallmouth.
Absolutely.
Especially deep. But it used to
Especially
be
deep.
2D.
Yep.
So you just had a cone under your boat. And so instead of being able to search 100 feet in any direction,
Yep.
you have to take your trolling motor and do grids over areas you think are going to hold fish and see if there's a mark, and if there is, you drop it down
Yep.
and catch it. That was how we used to do it. I can't imagine going back to that. So that would
But
be,
you could if you had to.
you could if you had to.
You could.
I don't think
You
we'll ever
could.
have to. This
Right.
technology is here to stay. There's still times you don't need it. I mean, I go shallow and use your eyes.
Yeah.
There's plenty of fish up shallow, and
There's
if
no
you can
point in that.
sight fish for cruising. No,
Yep.
it actually does come into play.
Even when there's
Yeah,
structure
so-
weed mats involved. like-
Maybe not. Grass might be a little hard. You can still do it, but where I fish, it's all, let's just say, shallow areas.
a lot of rocks. A lot of
I can
shallow,
still
clear.
find fish in 4 to 8 feet of water with the forward-facing sonar that are past my eyesight.
Gotcha.
And so I've been doing that last year a lot more. The challenge is with a new person is casting distance and accuracy, where
Yep.
I'm able to just look. I don't even. It's the point where you don't even think about it.
Yep.
You just throw your jig at the
You
fish.
know when you're looking that fish on your graph, exactly where your rod needs to go.
Yeah.
Because you know when that fish shows up exactly where it is. You know it's 1:30, it's 2:00, whatever
Mm-hmm.
the case may be.
You just make your cast at that distance, and then you actually get to see how that fish reacts to it. It may not have liked it. It may have been spooked by it, or it's aggressively going after it. You're going to get a bite any second.
How far down does that? And I'm asking from. There's going to be some good bass guys watching this show and listening. I'm like, this host is a moron. I have no idea. All right.
Yeah.
So forward facing sonar, it's like, does that read top to bottom regardless of how deep you are?
Yep, top to bottom, and as far out as you kind of want to go. I mean,
Casting distance, there's
70 to 100 feet is what I like to have mine
Sure.
set on.
because you'll fish as deep as 40,
50, yeah.
50,
60.
60.
Yep.
That's deep. At what point can you not see bottom when you're out there? It's about 40, past 40, where you start to lose
visually?
track. Yeah,
Or on the graph?
like on visually.
Oh, it depends on the time of year.
If you have high sun, you
In
can see.
April and it's dead calm, you're
Yep.
going to see down 50 feet.
No shit.
In the summer and July, you'll make out stuff at 20, but
Is that because the water gets a little dirtier?
a little bit of sediment in the
Sediment.
water. It's crystal clear in the spring and late fall. Like, if I could give one tip for someone that's out there that's really hardcore, I would pick a calm day. You're going to get a handful of them in April when it's sunny and flat calm, no ripple. And go to all your spots that you know and just get a visual of what it looks like. You know, you might be fishing a big boulder out there in 30 feet of water and, you know, you have a lot of history with it, but it's cool to be able to go over there and just actually see it with your own eyes.
as
too.
opposed to only going in late June and July where you're not going to get those visuals.
Yeah. And what else I'd recommend is if you have a buddy that wants to idle your boat and you just stand up at the bow and you can still have your side image going and stuff, but you'll be able to see things and you'll be able to pick out fish even on like a, you know, sometimes smallmouth don't even want to be around, say, a boulder. Everyone thinks you got to find boulders and
Sure.
stuff, but sometimes it's just a nothing bottom. And you can find those big schools of fish doing that.
Scouting, essentially. Taking the time to scout. I mean, you told me, what was it, last year or the year before? I'm like, you called me or I called you. I'm like, what are you doing? You're like, I'm just basically putting around, like marking shit out in the
Yeah.
middle of the lake.
So on my free time, if I can help it and not pick up a fishing rod, your best thing to do is just idle with your side image and start looking.
Marking
There's
spots.
so much stuff. There's so much stuff I don't have.
Really?
But I have enough that I'm pretty confident out there. But I always could use more for sure.
Interesting. I mean, that's really all I have on Ford. I didn't want to derail our conversation.
Talk about this for hours.
I know. I mean,
it's just a matter of everyone's
just
personal
curious.
opinion. I don't think it's destroying the fishery at
No.
all. It's making you more efficient. I can go up to a boulder instead of making 20 casts to it. I can just see, is there a fish there?
Sure.
Sometimes there's not. These fish will be there one day and gone the next. And so now I just go on to the next one. I'll be able to hit 50 spots in a day.
Yep.
Where before you're only able to hit 20.
Because you're spending time at those spots, not knowing
Trying
if
to
there's
see
fish
if there's
there
a
or not.
fish there. And it's not always like it's not always forward facing sonar. There's a lot of other ways to catch them. So even if you don't have it, don't be discouraged. It's just not going to be as
efficient
out there.
Have you? This question came into us on info. Scotty's going to laugh at this because none of us need. Have you ever heard of hover strolling?
Yes.
It's a bass technique. Can you describe that? Because the dude that wrote us the email, and we're actually very grateful because all of us were like, I don't even know what this guy's talking about. What is that, and where would you implement that?
So with forward facing sonar, a lot of people are using just a jig head and some sort of minnow imitating bait. And all you're doing is you're casting it out to your fish that you see, and you're shaking it.
You're sight fishing.
No, you're on the graph.
Okay, I got you.
Okay.
Sorry, you said that.
You see that fish out there, you throw your bait, you count it down, and you start swimming it, shaking it, hovering it over that fish. And they're either going to grab it, or they're going to be scared of it, or nothing's going to happen. So those three options, right? But
and that's a technique that deserves a name.
Yeah, it's a good technique. I've used it plenty of times.
So
I've used it in tournaments.
Is it suspended fish that you see on a forward-facing sonar?
Suspended, or they could be on the bottom.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
But you're just shaking that bait in front of that fish.
Are you trying to keep that bait in that
Above
zone
them.
longer, always above them? Are you applying like a certain weight or technique where that bait's going to stay in that zone longer, or is it a fast retrieve,
No,
a slow retrieve?
there's definitely different ways to rig your bait to get it to hover more, or just to stay in the zone longest. But that doesn't always come into play. A lot of times we have big waves, and you got to be really accurate. For a client to do that without experience, almost impossible. And even as good as using live scope and doing that technique that I feel I am, I think there's better techniques that are going to get more bites
on that
for me,
as opposed to that technique,
as opposed to shaking a minnow. Because you might have to throw it 20 fish to get one to bite. And I understand the value of shaking them in. I know it's the biggest thing going on right now.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We're
ahead of the game, Scotty.
There's a whole new bait
for that
lineup for that.
Gotcha.
And maybe in some of the southern lakes across the country and largemouth anglers, and when those fish are offshore, it might be probably the best way to catch them. But for me, it's not. I feel like I can throw a jig on that same fish and get a much better reaction from that fish than I would shaking a minnow. So I throw a jig on these fish.
Does it matter if it's targeting smallmouth or largemouth for this technique? Does it do better for one or the other?
No, they both work. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. Well, there you go. Now we know. I mean, we do get a lot of emails to info all the time, and guys will ask us what we have for our offering with these techniques, and we don't know everything. Especially for these.
For
things.
shaking a minnow, I would put 5-pound braid to either a 6 or 8 pound leader.
Because you do need a little bit of weight to get the distance there, but it can't be so heavy where you want to be above the fish.
It depends on the waves, how deep they are.
With the wind, against the wind.
I'll
whatever.
have 3 rods set up with different weights.
Gotcha.
Ready to go.
Same style, but different weights.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Different jig heads as far as weights go, or different.
Same jig head, just different weight.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I think that's all I really had for that. So for this season coming up, like I said, April, it's preseason for us. We're rolling into, guys are uncovering their boats. They're getting ready. Do you ever set any goals for yourself where you came off, all these years of guiding, or all these years of tournament fishing, or all these years of just being, just an angler, right? You don't have anyone on your boat. You're just going out enjoying yourself. Mm-hmm. Do you ever set goals for yourself in the upcoming year? You're like, you know what, this year I really want to catch a 9.5, 10 pounder, or whatever. This year I want to put 97 fish in the boat. I don't know what it is. Like, do you have any goals for being a guide captain for this season?
Yeah,
your
normally
clients
I just want to find 3 magical new spots a year. You know,
for yourself, for clients, regardless.
for both, yeah,
for both.
just 3 special.
Special.
Sometimes
is,
you don't even find one.
special is in they're new to you.
Yes.
Or special is in this place is an effing gold mine.
Both, like something new that I don't know about. You know, I'll give you an example. Last year, I drove past this island
All the time.
thousands of times, and I've never really fished this particular set.
Why did you drive past that? Did you just feel like
So
was it too shallow?
if you look at
around
a
the
map of
island?
the river,
Yeah.
it's pretty intense, right? You're never going to fish everything.
Sure.
And so that's all
As
that's
far as the nooks and crannies, the islands, and this, yeah,
that's all I
got
can
you.
say about that. But I pulled up on it and realized the way it's set up was very special. From a shallow flat off of a point to 40 feet of water within casting distance to current just hitting it.
A lot going on there.
Yeah, and those smallmouth were there every day during when I was guiding. If I was in that zone, I would stop, and it's definitely a magical spot.
Why did you drive past it, and what made you stop for the first time? Were you just like, I gotta go look at this freaking thing? Like what you said, you drive by it all the time.
Yeah.
Did you just assume what the structure and the current were going to be like based on looking at it all the time, driving
I don't know
past
why I
it?
pulled in. I just
But
because
it was-
I like to just check out areas.
But it was a magical. You would
that was
consider
just an
it.
area I wanted to check out. I was like, you know what, I need to look at this. I probably looked at dozens of islands that day. You know,
Would you consider that a discovery of a magical spot that you were just talking about? Your goal was
sure.
to find what, 3
that
this
would be
year?
one.
I think
I think that was the only one I found last.
I think like what you said earlier, where you're like, some people just like to go out and you're like, wow, it's beautiful out. This is gorgeous. I think that for you is the bottom.
Yeah, I want to know every boulder out there.
I think like where people are like, look at this gorgeous rock wall and this current and these boats and these bridges and it's so beautiful. I think that you have that in you. It's just underneath the water.
Yeah, I
Like you said, the sandy flat with a point and with 40 feet. Like I think you're essentially a fish.
I guess I just like to find. Like I said, my goal, I want to know everything that's going on under there. If I had one superpower, it would be to drain the freaking lake. You know, that'd be so awesome. If we could just drain it, and then you could take a 4-wheeler with a GPS and just run your stuff.
And then fill it back up
Yeah,
and put the fish back.
whatever, however it works. That's what I want.
Do you find that those quote unquote magical spots or your good spots, especially in the river, are they good because that's an area where there's just a lot going on in there?
Yeah.
You got a sandy, you got this drop. Like, do you find your better spots have just a lot more shit going on than just like,
No,
hey, it's a rock pile?
Sometimes it varies. And who knows? This year they might not even use this spot.
Sure.
I really don't know what to expect. But
Did you find that last year?
Last
Before?
year.
Last year?
Yep, about July. Funny story. I actually had a tournament, a big one out of Messina. It was the MLF Coast Toyota Series, and that was a 2-hour drive to this spot one way. And I had a short day. I was planning on sitting there all day long, and I got there, and there was probably a 50-yard mat of eelgrass that somehow the current eddy changed, and there was eelgrass right where I needed to cast. And
You can't get through that, right?
I spun out, and I tried to scramble, and before I knew it, and I got there at like say 8, it was noon, and I had to be back at 2.
It's over.
I sucked that tournament. I totally sucked.
Do you find more fish there or better quality of fish in that
Both.
spot? Both.
Yeah, there's
It's
some
just got everything going on.
I think more 6s have come off that spot this year for me.
Do you find that there's a size? They intermix.
Yeah.
You catch a 2.5 pounder, you catch a 6 pounder.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. That's not a thing. Where those larger adult fish will be in an area versus. I mean, smaller fish are probably.
But
what?
a 4-pounder now is like a 2-pounder too.
Sure.
Like a 4 is nothing anymore. That's not going to win a tournament.
Compared to what it was in the past. Is
Yeah,
what
so
you're saying.
there'll be plenty of 3s, 4s. It's fun for guiding.
Bites, right?
But in a tournament setting, you really want to get to that 30-pound mark.
Do you focus on different spots when you're in a tournament because you want a fat bag compared to when you're guiding where it's like, I know we're going to get good fish, but we're going to get a lot of quantity here too?
No, so guiding to me, I fish all my tournament spots and guide all the same stuff. I don't switch it up. The year before, I fished the Toyota and led on day one out of a spot I guided on for 2 weeks straight. So my theory is if the spot's good enough to catch them all for weeks before a tournament, that's a magical spot.
Do you have clients that ever say, hey man, I just want to catch 100 fish today? Or do you have clients that are like,
sure, it's whatever they want.
I want to find the biggest
We
fish.
customize a trip based on what they're looking for.
Sure.
Most of the time, they just want to set the hook and catch some fish.
So goals going into this year, like you said, you want to find upwards of 3 magical spots.
I'd be lucky if I find one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else as just an angler or a competitive angler? Like, how about competitive angling size?
So I don't set goals for like tournament wins and stuff anymore. I just we just see how the day plays out. Really.
You're going to know partway through, you're like, I got a shot at this, or
Yeah, it's more so I don't really care about practice or my guide trips. Like I pick a zone based on weather for the tournament, and that's the zone I'm going to fish. And if I can catch 27 pounds, cool. If I only catch 23, it is what it is. If I don't have a fish until 11, I'm good with that too. Like I just don't get. I used to get all worked up and nervous, and it doesn't faze me anymore.
I mean, that was paying your bills at one point, was it not?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to be able to. That was different too, because now I'm fishing all local stuff up there. So I feel like I really can jump into any event and have a shot at it. Where when you go to different lakes, you got to spend 4, 5, 6, 7 days practicing to have a shot. So
If you can.
the stuff that's up here, I like to jump in any event that I can. And like I said, anything could happen. Like I'm confident I can win it, but I could also come in 8th place just as well, or bomb like I do in the last Toyota series out of Messina. I was actually excited in a good way, not nervous, but I was excited to go fish that tournament. Like the drive to Messina that morning, I was like, I'm gonna freaking wreck them off that spot.
You felt dialed.
Definitely.
You knew
felt
where
that.
you were going.
I knew exactly where I was going to go, how I was going to set up. I just didn't expect
What? Yeah. What?
a mat of eelgrass sitting on
What
it.
is eelgrass? Describe
It's
that.
just basically there's a lot of eelgrass in the river, and a lot of it gets cut up from wind and boat motors
Yep.
and stuff like that. And then
The
current
ships,
just brings it to wherever it
like
wants
what
to.
is it? Is it thick, wide,
Just
long,
thicky.
Like I know milfoiled. I know like
Just pick like a weed, like one of them. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's just like thin, but flat strands of
Yep.
grass. That's just
a wad of it.
wads of it.
And you probably, what'd you do? Roll up to that side where you're like, God damn it.
I was like, wait, well,
That had never been there before, and all
never
the times,
seen that.
never seen that.
Never seen that.
And then when did you go back to that spot?
Probably the next day, guiding.
And it was gone?
Yeah.
Is it gone from river fluctuation flows, or
I don't know.
just moves
just
on?
the way the current was going that day. Because it does form an eddy too there.
Sure.
I understand why the eelgrass was piling
Yeah.
up.
Do you feel like things should pile up there a little bit more, being an eddy, and
Yes.
and it just hadn't
Any
until
normal
that
other
day?
place, you might have some chunks coming down, but it's going to leave.
I think it was karma that bit you in the ass that day.
Yeah?
Yeah, you did something really screwed up, and you got there.
Could have been. I had some secondary spots I felt confident in too, but I also
You ran out of time, right?
Yeah, but I also know I couldn't keep running further.
Right.
And I did spun out that time. Just because that's something unforeseen.
Is that a problem with some of those tournaments? Not a problem, but a problem for you. It's just like, I have these good spots, but based on where the launch is and the run
It's a
time
huge
to
problem.
get there.
They, for some reason, love to have tournaments out of Messina,
Right.
which is 2 hours from the mouth of the river.
Do they do that on purpose?
I don't know why they do it. They like to have us spend money on gas, I guess. You can win it on that end, for sure.
Yeah. But you don't guide down
I don't
on
fish that zone.
You don't fish that zone all the time, right?
I'm pretty confident anything from
Clayton?
Ogdensburg
Yep.
to Chippewa Bay, and then from Clayton to the mouth.
Yep.
That's kind of my zone.
That's your zone.
With Clayton to the mouth being number one area.
All right. Well, I got a series of what I call rapid fire questions here.
Okay.
All right. These are some heavy hitters. Scotty boy over there helped me with a few too. All right. If you could only fish one bait for smallmouth the rest of your life, one bait. God's like, Travis, you got one bait you can fish, and that's it.
Yep.
What is it?
3/8 ounce Beast Coast open water sniper jig in sexy melon color.
Very specific. And that's probably something that you go to a lot, or you just have a ton of success in it in your area. Or is it versatile?
Versatile.
It's versatile.
You can do whatever you want with it.
I gotcha.
That's all I need.
So depth, whatever, structure, whatever, that's something that you can kind of tweak and conform.
90% of the fish that are caught on my guide trips come off of those jigs.
One more time. What is it?
Beast Coast is the company. Open water sniper jig. And you're going to want to get the MB style, which is a short for magic bug. It has less strands of jig material. Doesn't have a weed guard. You just fish it like you would a tube. Drag it around, throw it, drop it. I've dropped on top of fish like you're drop shotting. There's a lot of ways to fish it. Sometimes dead sticking it is really important, and then also the trailer. You know, obviously you need a trailer for it. You don't need a trailer, but it helps.
Yep. A trailer of what?
Any type of plastic.
Color, length.
I like to keep the colors matching the jig, but you could use straight black too and probably catch them.
Okay.
Something totally different, contrast.
Next question. You can no longer fish for smallmouth ever. What is your next favorite target species that you would switch over to?
If I was guiding, it would be...
No, I'm talking, you can't fish for smallmouth, Travis.
But I still need to make a living.
I don't care what you do.
Okay, I'm going to give you 2 examples then. If I'm
It's
making a
not the
living...
question, but go ahead.
If I'm making a living, salmon and trout trolling. If I had to switch.
Lake browns, salmon,
Yeah, I did
lake
that.
trout.
So I'll give you a side story real quick. I got a little aluminum boat that I fixed up for salmon and trout for trolling on the lake. And this was my first year doing it. And I used to do it back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
In Wisconsin?
Yeah, in Wisconsin. We actually fished tournaments doing it. A bigger boat,
Sure.
5, 6 downriggers and everything else.
So you know what you're doing getting into this.
Well, I mean, it's been 20
Yeah, I know, but-
it's been a long time.
Yeah, I
But
gotcha.
I did the research, did the homework, and was able to figure it out. I didn't have an unsuccessful trip out there. And it kind of blew my mind doing it out of a smaller 20-foot Lund with a tiller.
Okay.
Where are we going with this?
So the question was, and you sidetracked us, you can no longer fish for smallmouth.
All right, if I'm guiding salmon and trout, if I'm just fun fishing,
Yes.
I'd switch over to walleyes.
Really?
Yeah.
Specific, like big walleyes? You want to hunt big ones? Do you want
don't care.
quantity?
Just
walleye fishing.
Yeah, I go
Is
walleye
it because it's kind of similar in some ways to what
Yeah,
you
it's similar.
like?
It's a great walleye place, and I do guide for walleyes, and I do catch a lot of walleyes throughout the summer too. So
I'm still waiting for my invite on the boat to go get those big ones out there.
told you many times.
I know, but you call me at Monday at 8 o'clock. You're like,
I know.
come up, bro. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Right?
Okay. If you were forced to fish one method or style for smallmouth bass the rest of your life, what is it? I'm assuming it has to do with that jig you described.
Yeah,
You
just
could
be a-
only fish one technique. That's it.
That's kind of the same as the bait.
It is.
Yeah.
Because it's versatile.
There's your answer.
You screwed that one up. All right.
Yep.
I don't think we've been over this, but like who has been your biggest influence in all of your fishing career? Like does that make sense? Like who do you look up to? Who do you
Sure.
like? And it might be today. It could have been, I could ask you this question in a different way. It's like, who was your biggest influence that got you into the sport? I don't really want to know that. It's always, a dad, an uncle,
Yeah.
Kevin Van Dam or something. You know what I mean? But like
Yeah.
today, like, did someone that you look to, because you're at a status in your point in career of being I call you a professional bass hunter because you are. Maybe not on a tournament circuit level, what some people would be like, that's kind of where you got to be. But is there someone that you still look at and you're like, man, this dude's got some influence on me. I follow him. His techniques are pretty cool. I'm going to try some of these. He's a good upstanding citizen. He's a great angler. He's a good guy. Like who is that person to you? Is it Eric? Is it Epic Eric? Is it Brian the Carpenter? Is it JP? Like who is that guy for you right now?
Well, I guess growing up, it would have been
Jimmy Houston?
Babe Winkleman.
Babe Winkleman?
Yeah.
He's a Wisconsin guy, right?
No, Minnesota.
Minnesota, same thing. I'm just kidding.
So my parents probably bought me like a VHS tape of Babe
Sure.
Winkleman's bass fishing secrets.
Sure.
And I watched his shows pretty regularly. That and then Joe Bucher from Wisconsin, muskie guide, but he also did a lot of bass fishing, some walleye. Keith Cavias, Gary Parsons, they're walleye anglers. That was kind of the early guys that I followed.
That's a fair answer.
Nowadays, I mean, I don't know.
Who do you admire? Like, he's a great angler. He's a good guy. I would love to have a cocktail with him at the bar and hang out. You might not have a chance to do that just because you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Gosh, there's so
let me
many.
rephrase
I
that.
don't
Like,
know.
who's a guy out there in the professional bass fishing circuit, or just a well-known guy that you're like, man, I'd love to fish with that guy someday.
Well, I think I fished with Roland Martin up on the
A few
river.
years ago, right? It wasn't that long
Yep,
ago. I remember
was,
that.
That was fun, entertaining. Who's the other guy?
Who's the guy from Monster Bass? Rick Patry.
Rick.
You
Yep.
know Rick?
Yeah,
Nice
I know
guy.
Rick.
You know he's from upstate?
Yeah,
From,
Syracuse.
Syracuse.
Who's the other dude? We filmed a show with him. He was with Berkeley. Hank Parker.
Nice guy?
Yeah, that
Cool
was
guy?
fun.
Chill?
Yeah, yep.
So I'll take that as an answer.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Those were. I mean, it was just cool being in the boat with Roland.
Yeah.
And catching some big smallmouth and
Nice guy?
yeah,
Has he done that a lot, or is he more of a
yeah.
southern
No,
angler?
he's got plenty of experience.
Okay.
He just brought a lot of his old school applications.
Did you learn anything?
with me? I learned he loves to throw a Cinco. Regardless, yeah.
Was Rick Patry on that trip too, or was that
No,
a
that
different
was
trip?
different. Yep.
Because there's a whole crew of guys out. I got linked up with Rick probably 12, 11 years ago when I first started working here. He was working for a company called Fish Hound. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yep.
And Rick was a Syracuse guy. I think it's Syracuse or Buffalo. I forget what it is. But nice dude. I'll never forget the dinner he took me out to in Las Vegas to a restaurant called Nobu. You ever heard of Nobu? It's the most insane seafood, like 5-star Michelin, biblical, dude.
Yeah.
I'm talking, this dude brings out a whole like 40-pound snapper, whole, everything.
Yeah.
And I think his name's Steve Tagami. He used to work for Mustad. He was at the dinner before. Asian guy, super cool dude. Grabs both cheeks of this red snapper. He goes, "Are you gonna eat the cheeks?" I was like, "Fucking eat the cheeks." Grabs both cheeks, puts them on his plate. That's the first time I've ever realized that cheek meat is somewhat of a delicacy. So, anyways, last time I saw Rick too. I see him on Facebook all the time, doing his thing. Anyways, Rick, if you're listening, love to catch up with you. Okay, let me see here. You're fishing a lake that only has largemouth in it. What is your go-to method?
So I'm going to fish my strengths first of all, which would be finesse, and I would probably drop shot / Ned rig for him.
That's where you're going to start off. You know nothing about this lake. You're like, all right, I'm just going to go.
Yeah, first of all, if it was for a practice for a tournament, I would have done enough research to know
What's available
where
for
the key
techniques.
areas,
Sure.
what techniques are working. Even let's say it's a topwater bite.
Yep.
In the fall, let's say they're schooling fish on shallow shoals. Let's say you're on Kentucky Lake.
Yep.
Right. I still would spend a bunch of days of practice doing what I have the most confidence in, which would be finesse fishing.
Yep.
And then I would
Alter from there.
I would do that as well.
I got you.
But I'm always going to start out with my strengths.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Before I ask you this next question, what is the most amount of smallmouth you put in the boat in one day?
I have no idea.
Would you say it's 50,
No, way more than that.
75, 100?
Over 100.
Have you done over 100?
Yeah, I think I want to say 300.
300 in one day?
That's with 2 other anglers.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So 100 a piece, 300. Was it just stupid? Where you just like, at some point you just got to start laughing, setting the hook. It must have been every cast.
Sure. Yeah.
Good ones too?
Not all.
Dinks with good ones?
2 pounders.
2
3
pounders, mostly.
Yeah.
Here, where you fish in upstate?
Yep.
Would you just find the mother load?
It's kind of a regular thing in the spring.
I don't know. I never get invited, so I
Right.
don't know what a regular thing
I mean, a
is.
good day, let's say post spawn into the summer,
Okay.
40.
40?
Yeah.
That's a good average.
I'd say 40 fish in the
So
boat.
when you and I went, I think I think I got like 15. You caught like 30. You know, and you were like, "This isn't a great day." We had fun. We
Yeah.
caught some okay fish, but
Yeah.
I think we put maybe 45 fish between the two of us. I will say I was winning that day for a long time.
Yeah.
Until you made me fish in the back of the boat.
There'll be plenty of, I'll give you an example. There was one boulder last year that had so many fish around it every day, you could catch your 40, 50 fish off of it.
And never leave.
Yeah.
Spot lock? Just leave it there? Okay, so my next question. Do you prefer quantity or quality? Would you rather catch what's your largest smallmouth?
8.5.
Would you rather catch 2 9-pounders or 250 40-pounders in one day?
40 pounders. What'd you
40.
say?
254 pounders. Sorry, I did say 40 pounders. That would be incredible.
Gosh.
Yeah, would you rather say, man, I fished for 10 and a half hours, I only got 2 9-pounders, or would you rather come in and say, I fished 10 and a half hours and I got 254 pounds small?
I don't like that scenario.
Okay, well, why don't you tweak it to make it better for you? Do you see where I'm getting at?
Rather
though?
have a 30-pound bag
Okay.
versus catching a bunch of 4s.
So quality over
Yeah.
quantity.
But I wouldn't be happy with 2 9s if that's all I caught. I'd like to have 5 of them in the bag to see what my total
We're
would
not
be.
talking about bags here, bro.
I'm
I'm talking
just
about
saying.
like Travis going out on a Wednesday.
It's always about 5 of your biggest fish.
Is it though?
Every day I'm out there.
All right. Whatever. Butchered that question. Okay. You can only fish one color of braid the rest of your life. It's got to be white or yellow. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yellow.
Yellow. It's just
It'll work.
It'll work. You see it.
White.
Do you do white and yellow just because you color code those reels based on you're like this
No,
is dedicated
so
to that. This is
Anything I'm swimming is going to have white braid.
Yep.
Anything on the bottom,
Yep.
I'm going to use yellow.
I got you. All right. And I know why. I think we went over that on last. You can only fish 1 pound test of braid the rest of your life. You can only one. 5, it's 8, 10, 15.
8.
What is it?
8.
8? Most versatile you feel? Mm-hmm. You could do a little bit more and still have that finesse side of things?
Yep.
All right. You heard it here first, folks. That's really all I got, man.
That's it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Scotty, what are we on? Like over an hour? What is it, bucks? When did you start that camera? $1.17 on there? I felt like it was a lot longer than that. Well, I mean, I'm not totally done.
I saw you had more questions. That's all. It was fun.
So, your next move. When do you first plan on hitting the water? We know your first trip coming up is scheduled April 15th.
Yeah, probably that week. Well, for bass, I'm going to try to get out and do some
Shoreline trolling?
brown trout
Yep.
trolling, and I'll go get a bunch of walleye and perch before
Crappie?
they close. Crappies in June.
Is that when it opens?
No, that's just when I can catch them.
Oh. Did that when we went in June? Yeah, it was. It was opening weekend of bass. Mm-hmm. Was that a tough winter? I don't think it was. That was coming off pretty
No, we're gonna have a
pretty
really good
mild
season
winter.
this year.
I want to. Is that spot fixed? That was getting construction last year. Our spot
Yeah,
is it done? They stop hammering on that.
I don't know what it's gonna look like.
We're gonna go frickin' find out.
We will.
I can't imagine those fish will stray too far. They might not be stuffed in there as they were that day. Those pillars different.
Yeah.
Things a little different. Fuck. All right. And you're keeping half of them this time.
Okay.
I'm not cleaning 45 crappie the next day. So you get out that week, weather pending, obviously. You said you're going to troll on the lake. Any steelhead float fishing? You didn't go at all this year.
I went a
Did
couple
you?
days ago.
Oh, you did? Mm-hmm. Thanks for the call.
Well,
Salmon River? Or did you go to the Black River?
went to Oswego.
Oh, you did? On the wall? Or did you go up by the dam?
No, I went by the dam.
Did you walk out to the dam?
Yep.
Sketchy.
Nah, it's fine.
How high was the water?
Well, the snow was high.
Oh, it was?
That was the only sketchy part.
Were you
Basically, they didn't shovel nothing,
on the walkway?
and so the snowbank was so big that it was above the railing.
so there's nothing to hang on to, I assume. It's probably a sheet of ice,
You could have
right?
You could have went in,
And gone.
but then It was just one little 20-foot section.
Yeah.
I went way up,
I got you.
and then the fence was a little taller.
Yep.
But there was no steps. Some of them have those steps going up by that dam.
Did you go up by the big dam or like the power dam?
Well, you have to walk past the big.
Correct.
Yeah. There was no stairs. It was just snow.
Right.
So it was just nothing but big
Anybody
snow.
else there?
No.
No. You're the only idiot.
And then I went to the Salmon River after that.
Nothing. No. This time of the year is really tricky with steelhead. If you don't fish, I'm talking like transient fish. I'm not a huge, like the upper salmon and some of the upper spots where these fish have come into the river, and they're further up. They're going to get ready to spawn here. They're not spawning yet, but they're staging, right? To me, chasing those fish, I just don't really have any interest in that. I love targeting transient fish. Like, you know where I fish. I showed you some of my spots. We fished there together. Like, I love catching fresh transient fish. I think they're dumber. I think they fight harder.
So I went to that spot where you've seen me, where you've snuck up on me. Is that not good right now?
It is good.
I tried.
I think the flows are up right now, which that still has a mega seam on the inside. That's the thing about that spot is that will fish good in low water because you can throw out in the main current. And I fished it in like 2000 CFS where that seam is still, you still have a seam on your side.
Yeah.
But the problem is we're so deep into the season. I mean, these fish are getting ready to spawn here in another few weeks. Once this weather kicks up, you know what I mean? They're going to be like itching for gravel. Yeah. The vast majority of the fish in the Salmon River have gone through that spot. Now I'll still fish it and get, eats here and there, but like versus, December, January, and February where they're still coming in. Yeah, March I typically don't do as well in the lower river. The vast majority of those fish have moved past that. Did you try that spot?
Yeah.
Nothing. It's one of those. When did you get there?
Afternoon. I'll be honest. They didn't plow
behind there.
Yeah, so I had to walk, and it was snow. There was a lot of snow, and so it took a little bit of time to get there.
Was it in the afternoon?
Yeah, late afternoon.
So what happens is you have to get there before noon to beat the boats. If you are not there before the boats, there's about 3-4 guys that guide down in that stretch because they can row it. They will clean up every fish in there, and there's no point in going there.
Got it.
So
yeah,
I try to hit that before noon.
I fished it for about a good half hour, and then on the last casts of the night, I got one of them really messed up tangles where your float and all your...
Because you fish braid for float fishing.
I do.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Anyways, it normally doesn't, but it did this time. And so I sat there in the water.
What do you mean it normally doesn't? The only video I've ever posted on my Instagram is you having a massive tangle.
Sometimes it happens. So I'm out there in my waders trying to deal with it for 10 minutes. And then I went back to the bank and kind of got organized. And then I was like, well, I tried. I either got to re-spool this or go home. And so I just wrapped it around the rod and walked out of there.
Well, what we should do is, depends on your schedule, but maybe we'll go up there for drop back season. Because I bet this year will be a good drop back season. We have a lot of water. It's much colder. What's happened the last few years is there's been a lot of algae in the drift, like in April, like in a time frame where it's typically perfect for drop back season. I remember going the last couple of years and it sucked.
Sure.
Like the fish had vacated these areas very quickly because it got so warm on their gravel beds. They dug, they bounced. The algae was really weird. Like, why are we having algae? And it's funky algae, and it covers your shot line. It covers your hook.
Because it was such a mild winter last year.
Yeah. So this happened the last couple years. My point is, like, this should be a good drop back season. So maybe we'll go up there in between trips. All right. Where can listeners find you to book a trip on the #1 smallmouth fishery in the world?
Yep, you can go to my website, smallmouthcrush.com. You get all my informations on there.
Okay.
Instagram, smallmouthcrush. Those are more, I have Facebook and TikTok and stuff, but those are the two primary ways. Or just give me a phone call.
And your number's on there as far as doing
that?
On
the website, yep.
And how... Do you have a lot of openings still up? I mean, it's early in the
varies.
season. I know they'll fill up. They always do.
Yeah. Sooner the better.
Do you refer clients to other captains if you're booked?
Yeah, I have a couple guides that work under me that...
Good guys you trust that dialed? Yep. Yeah. I'm assuming. So there is always that case if you can't go with the legendary Travis Manson,
we'll get you somebody normally, yeah.
That's a
And
hammer of a smallmouth guy.
I have the early season's pretty much full.
Sure.
I think there's 3 or 4 dates left in June. I probably got 10 the rest of the months.
Are there any dates open for me?
No.
Besides just like the Monday, Tuesday morning,
No.
hey, bro, drive up here.
It would be a last minute.
Great.
I can't schedule you in.
So the one time we fished 3 years ago, like that was my shot, is what you're
Probably.
saying.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to get away.
I gotta stop having kids, bro. That's my
I know,
problem. And you think like you travel a lot.
No, I don't understand. You work here every day, right?
Mostly, yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much.
So if I call you up and say we're going to go do this, isn't this some sort of like a business
Bro,
marketing trip?
100%. I'm not worried about like
Then leave.
going. You're 2 hours away, bro. It's not like you're right down the road. You know what I mean? It's like 8:30. Hey man, let's fish. I'm thinking if I'm in my underwear. If I get in the truck right now, it's 10:30 at the earliest, right? Then it's gonna get like I want the full Travis Manson
well,
experience.
we can
You know what
work
I mean?
something out, sure.
The last time I drove up in the dark to Mud Bay, jumped on the boat. I drove home at 7 o'clock at night with 45 crappie in a cooler in the back of the. I think it was in a trash can. I had to pull over a trash bag. It was not ready for that. So okay, last question. When am I allowed back on your show? All the things I do for you, all like the trips that I get you, this podcast, like everything, the gear. It's been over 2 years. Is there a reason I'm not on the show? Am I
You haven't
not?
been on the show in over 2 years?
Look back, bro. It's been 2 years. Am I not a good guest? Do
Wow.
I not bring anything to the table?
Well, that one of the reasons why I came here today is to discuss our partnership in 2025. So
well, we just did
I would
because we
love
went
to,
down the
look
finished
into
goods.
that.
Yeah, we
I would
did
love
that.
to look
I
into
told
that.
you that was coming, Scotty.
yes,
I don't understand how we're going to discuss furthering our partnership when I haven't been on your live show in 2 years.
maybe you'll get more of some guarantees from me of what I can provide value for yourself as well as Cortland.
There was a probation period from all the
That's
bullshit.
ended. That's
You think
ended.
so?
I haven't been in trouble.
I mean,
in-
that was a significant probation period from the shit that went on.
It's been 2 years since I've gotten a fine.
Other than the chicken feed story, that's not probation.
No.
No.
No, I've been clean.
Okay. I mean, it has been 2 years.
Yeah.
I know I have technology issues every time I sign on, which is unbelievable to me because I do Zoom, Skype, every meeting.
Sure.
I'm privy to, I go on Travis's show, right, Scott? I'm on my laptop. Travis like, hey, can you hear me? Nothing. iPad, nothing. I end up going on one of my 2 cell phones, my personal and my work phone. We always get it done. I'm just not as comfortable as if I'm on the iPad or the laptop. And I don't know what the issue is.
I think we can get you back for sure.
You think so? I enjoy going
Yeah.
on the show. And it's on a Monday, which is a good night. My wife's not coaching cheerleading. The kids aren't doing shit.
It's really it's a fun time. You never know what you're going to get.
I agree with that.
You know, some nights depends on my mood. So I have a.
I know, that's
I'm just
the thing
like a
that sucks.
smallmouth.
That's the
Sometimes
thing
I
that-
get moody.
That's the thing that sucks with your show sometimes. And I love your show. I'm just saying, like, I love going on there. And there's some structure to start the show. And then it's kind of like it just snowballs out of control. Sometimes really good ways. Like awesome topics. Just
Most
incredible.
of the time, it does
And then
end up to be an epic show.
Sometimes it'll just fall off a bridge where Eric gets pissed. He's like, guys, I'm done. It's over. And then it's, 45 guys on the live show, and we're just going down this deep, dark path where Travis is talking about, extraterrestrials.
It's nice when I can just freestyle at the end of
I
the
agree.
shows and not have to worry. That's my favorite part of the show. But sometimes my co-host does. He's more emotional or in touch with his feelings than I am. So I think his feelings get hurt from time to time.
You think so?
Yeah. Or maybe his what's the word I'm looking for? His belief
Yeah.
is something
That has something to do with it.
something to
Most
do
of
with
the
it.
time.
And normally we do get along well. There's been times we had to end the show abruptly,
Oh, I know.
quite a few times.
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes guests say the wrong thing.
Really?
Yeah, there's some trigger words out there for sure.
Oh, really?
And anything kind of goes. So you never know what you're going to get.
Does that end the show for Eric or just for you?
Oh, sometimes we all just end it.
Oh, we're like, all right, we got to like.
I flipped out before. I'm
Really?
out without a proper goodbye. Rare.
Because of a guest or because of a topic?
Anything, topic, normally. It's
That's what I love about
discussions,
you
'cause
and
you
Eric.
never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, you and Eric just
We're going to talk fishing, but then we're going to go to some other places.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Sometimes things get weird.
Sometimes I like to have some wine while I'm doing it.
That's the best. The best one you ever did was when you shot the show from a hot tub in New Jersey one year. That was great.
Yeah.
Poolside on your vacation.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I was tuning in looking for a good show. It's just like a dark lit Travis in a pool with his shirt off. I don't know what you were trying to do, but anyways, okay. Well, I'd love to come back on your show.
Perfect.
All right. Well, that's it for today's show, folks. I think we've done enough time. I was very pleased with that. Although nothing ridiculous. I think you lived up to the bar that you set the last 2 shows.
Sure.
Just flawless information, just thorough. It's very good. Scotty, don't you think? I mean, it's great. So check out this episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, all of our old episodes, clips on Instagram, clips on Facebook, all of those platforms. Like I said, if you have any questions for Travis, make sure you go check him out on his YouTube page, SmallmouthCrush. Go to smallmouthcrush.com. If you're looking to book a trip, you can DM him on Instagram or get his number right off of his website. That's really all I have for this show. Be on the lookout for our next episode. I think we have some more. I think we have part 2 or part 3 of our About the Fly Line series coming up next. Our boy John Shaner is going to be in-house pretty soon. And just a ton of other good stuff going on. Thanks for listening, folks. This is Cortland Hook, the podcast.